Milley, yes or no to this? Did you talk to Bob Woodward or Robert Costa for their book Peril?
Woodward, yes. Costa, no.
Did you talk to Carol Leonick and Philip Rucker for their book Alone Can I Fix It?
Yes.
Did you talk to Michael Bender for his book is Frankly, We Did Win This Election, The Inside Story of How Trump Lost? Yes.
Yes.
Or no? And were you accurately represented in these books?
I haven't read any of the books, so I don't know. I've seen press reporting of it. I haven't read the book.
Joining us now to discuss, Republican Senator from Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn. Senator, thanks for joining us today.
Sure. Good to join you. Thank you.
Good morning. Absolutely. We finally did get some definitive answers there from General Milley, again, about speaking to reporters there, but he also addressed his calls to China and reporters. Here's the general. Watch this.
Loyalty to this nation, its people, and the Constitution hasn't changed and will never change as long as I have a breath to give. My loyalty is absolute, and I will not turn my back on the fallen. With respect to the Chinese calls, I routinely communicated with my counterpart, General Lee, with the knowledge and coordination of civilian oversight.
So that was the first part about the calls, and then here's his remarks. This is Bob Woodward on CNN about speaking to reporters. Watch this.
As Milley told his senior staff, you might wind up getting a Pearl Harbor where someone will make the first move. And we don't know what would have happened if he hadn't done this.
Okay, so Senator, your reaction to the testimony we heard from General Mark Milley in regards to the calls to China. He also mentioned transcripts. Could we see those transcripts in the future?
Yes, indeed. I think that General Milley actually raised quite a few questions. Number one is to see those transcripts of those calls. And I have asked for these transcripts of the calls that he had with reporters. I've asked for the readouts on those. We want to know if those were made inside the Pentagon, if they were made when he was outside of the Pentagon, were federal resources used. You know, what he did basically was this. He said to the committee, we will not tell you what our advice that we gave to President Biden was, but on the other hand, General Milley, in order to repair his reputation, he thought, he goes out and he gives the verbatims of conversations from President Trump or White House staff to reporters who are writing these books. He also spent hours on this, giving information, but yet, you know, he wasn't paying attention to what was happening in Afghanistan.
You know, one of the people that were not in the room, or the person rather that was not in the room, but you wanted to ask questions to, was President Biden. This after
Correct.
the one question that he got from the one reporter from one network, Stephanopoulos on ABC News, I believe it was, asked the president, did anyone advise you to keep any military presence there, to which he directly responded, no. But you saw, Senator, in the chamber that was incorrect. 2,500 troops were recommended to stay by two generals. Here's that. Let me play this for you and I'll get your reaction.
But your top military advisors warned against withdrawing on this timeline. They wanted you to keep about 2,500 troops.
No, they didn't. It was split. That wasn't true. That wasn't true.
They didn't tell you that they wanted troops to stay?
No, not in terms of whether we were going to get out in a time frame, all troops. They didn't argue against that.
So no one told, your military advisors did not tell you, no, we should just keep 2,500 troops. It's been a stable situation for the last several years. We can do that. We can continue to do that.
No, no one said that to me that I can recall.
And here's General McKenzie to that response.
I won't share my personal recommendation to the president, but I will give you my honest opinion, and my honest opinion and view shaped my recommendation. I recommended that we maintain 2,500 troops in Afghanistan. And I also recommended earlier in the fall of 2020 that we maintain 4,500 at that time. Those are my personal views.
Senator, your thoughts?
Well, we heard from General Miller, who was in charge of our forces in Afghanistan, as well as General McKenzie, that the recommendation from the command team on the ground was that the troop levels be maintained with a minimum of 2,500. That way they could protect the embassy, the Bagram airfield, the prison there at the Bagram airfield, and HKIA airport.
Part of your response is to introduce legislation to hold the Biden administration accountable, which we saw in a preview yesterday, 5 minutes to speak, but also sending this out saying President Biden's erratic decision-making caused an entirely avoidable disaster that all but erased 20 years of progress in Afghanistan. This legislation will course-correct the Biden administration's many failures by implementing counterterrorism oversight and accountability measures to challenge the Taliban's reign of terror. Senator, talk to us about our national security at this point following the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Are we safe? Are we at risk?
We are at greater risk today than we were when Joe Biden raised his hand and took the oath of office. The reason is they have turned over to the Taliban, a terrorist group, an entire country. Afghanistan has been renamed as the Islamic Emirate. The Taliban is in charge. They have no governmental structures, but they are making a safe haven for terrorist groups to come. And what are they going to do? They're going to plot, they're going to plan, then they're going to attack us.
Senator, before you go, the House has just begun their hearing today. Obviously, they could piggyback of what they saw with you guys yesterday. What are your hopes that the House would find today with the three generals?
I think the House is going to drill down a little bit further on something I asked in the second round of questions, is about the Bagram airfield and how they came to that decision to give that up, why they didn't push back on the president. You have three generals sitting there, and nobody had the nerve to push back on the president and say, hey, you can't do this. We have to keep the Bagram airfield. We have to keep troops in the embassy. And I think you're going to see the House guys push forward on that. They're also going to pick up my line of questioning regarding conversations with the book to try to find out where those, when those, how much time was given to those conversations.
Yeah, it was interesting to find out it wasn't just one book, as you were able to point out.
That's right.
It was several books, exactly. A lot to know there. Transcripts you're calling for there. Again, that day two of the hearing kicks off today. Senator Marsha Blackburn joining us live. Thank you so much, Senator.
Got it. Thanks. Bye.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.